Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us for today's AVST Live webinar. Today we're going to be talking about secure messaging. Neil Butler, our Director of Sales Engineering, will be presenting. And before Neil gets going, just want to let you know a couple of things. In the webinar invite, we promised a Plantronics headphone giveaway, and so we will do that for those who have joined. We'll draw names at the end, actually after we conclude the webinar. So if you happen to be a winner, look for an email from us later today with a notification on that. And then we will make the slides available to you. You can actually download them from the handouts area on the webinar panel, but we will also include a link to them in the follow-up email, which will have a link to the recording of this webinar as well. And we always save time for Q&A, and just want to let you know that you're welcome to type your questions in at any time, and we'll, of course, let you know at the end as Neil wraps up when it's time for questions as well. Hope to get all of those answered. So with that, I'll let Neil get us going.
Thank you, Ann. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for attending the webinar. Today's an interesting topic. It's getting a lot of play in IT departments lately, and we've always been concerned with security in our product, and all the different sections. We talk a little bit about security here and there. We thought we would take the messaging security and sort of bring it all into one presentation to talk about, how we look at this piece of functionality that is, it's really critical, and there is no separate focus sometimes on security. So to tie it all together, I think will clear it up for a lot of people. Most of you probably know who we are and what we do and what we've been doing over the years. We're a UC, Unified Communications company. We did start out as a voice messaging company, so we do have quite a bit of experience in the voice messaging area. We do a lot more than just voice messaging, but we understand even voice messaging, as long as it's been on the market, changes with time, and particularly the security aspect changes, and has changed even in the last year. So we're going to talk about what we've done recently and remind you a little of some of our other technology that's out there, and hopefully you'll take away a feeling of comfort in terms of the security side of what we're doing with voice. If you look at kind of the breadth of our product line, voice is certainly where we started, and I doubt more than a few percentage of our systems that get installed go in without voice messaging. It's a key component, and we're quite often called in as a voice messaging replacement opportunity presents itself. There's a lot of other things we do, and they're all interwoven. Unlike most of our competitors, where as you buy more features, you buy more servers and apps and maintenance clients and user clients to sort of cover that spectrum, ours is all a single platform where you buy the licensing for what you want, we turn it on, and it all runs on that one platform. It's all integrated at the very most base level. That makes it a lot easier to use, a lot easier to maintain. And we do that in the market, basically servicing anything that's out there. We're not owned by a PBX company or a router company, and what that means is we really target every enterprise out there. We'd like for any customer you walk into their building, we'd like to be able to tell you all the great things we do without presenting you with a list of things you would have to upgrade to use our product. All of our UC works regardless of what your infrastructure looks like now and moving forward. Same thing. So whatever phone system you have today, we work with it, and if you're looking at changing that environment, we'll work with that new system as well. Same with groupware, network architecture, all of that. So within that infrastructure, let's talk a little bit about secure messaging. Now, the security in voicemail was basically non-existent in the earliest days. Some of the very first products didn't even have passwords on the mailboxes. If you pick up the phone and called and put in the mailbox number, it played the messages. So fairly soon, passwords became required, although they generally were default passwords like 4 zeros, and the system really never enforced any changing of passwords. So it was a very low environment, and it just didn't seem to be a problem for years. But then what happened, of course, is the voice and the data worlds merged, and data had a strong security focus from the very beginning, and they just didn't understand why voice didn't have that security focus. So they pushed long and hard in the beginning to get more security all the way across in voice. And things like encrypting the voice on the wire and all of that became issues. And as a manufacturer, of course, we had to deal with those issues, and we did, and we now have probably the most secure voice setup that you can get out there. We'll go through some parts of it today, talk a little bit about what it does. One of the things, of course, for us that's prompting this particular webinar is we've made some changes in how we're supporting the security side. And the piece that's new today is something that, so we've had a mobile client that did voice messaging, and from the very beginning it was pretty secure. And the way we did this, so we looked at the other mobile clients that were out there, and what most people did was downloaded a subset of messages to the phone, and you could play them on the phone. If somebody left their phone in a Starbucks, unfortunately, the messages were there for the taking. And that didn't seem like a good idea. Also, good practice when you're programming mobile apps is try not to use up storage and memory, because those are very limited on those smaller devices. So we built our mobile client with a different focus. When you go into our mobile client to look at voice, you bring up a message list. That message list comes up when you launch the app. It's not stored on the phone. It has to be current, and that makes sense. So we pull the message list down. You can scroll through the messages. When you click on a message to actually open that message to play it, what happens then is we download the message to the phone and play it. When they're done playing it and the user moves back to the message screen, that message is gone. So no messages are maintained on the phone. That's probably the biggest security step that we have. And by doing that, if you do leave your message, your phone around again, your device, and somebody picks it up, there's no way, once it's backed out to a normal screen, there's no way they're going to be able to get their messages. Plus, the administrator, of course, can turn that app off on a moment's notice. Earlier, we were actually storing the user's credentials. When you loaded our app up, it would ask you for your mailbox number and your password, and we would store those. And that actually caused some concern at the higher levels of security. So now we don't do that. We actually create a token, and that token is stored on the phone. And that allows you to be able to get into your messaging client without having to log in every time. But if somebody were to get a hold of that and hack that phone, they could not extract your credentials from it. And that token can be set to expire on a regular basis, maybe requiring you, once a month to log in and put your credentials in, plus that token can be revoked. So this client, we've had this mobile client, it's had messaging in it from the beginning, but more and more people have decided not to store their messages in their email system, once again, primarily for security reasons, and so now they want them just on their mobile device. So more people were using our mobile devices for messaging than ever before. And our philosophy on messaging has always been, you don't charge for user mailboxes, because that's, everybody needs those. That's core to the product. So we charge for ports as we size our system, but not for mailboxes. And about 2 years ago, we decided that our mobile web client had gotten very, very popular. So we started not charging for that. That used to be a user license, and we took that off. And then what we've just done recently in our last version of software is we've done the same for the voice messaging client. There's now no longer a license required to access your CX messages from the mobile client. You simply load our app. It's a free app. You get it from Google Play or from iTunes. And now you have free access to your voice messages in a very secure manner. This app does much more than just voice messages. It does outgoing calls, and so in a bring your own device department, you can split sort of the billing on personal and business calls. It allows users to set up all their applications that are controllable in their mailbox can be maintained from this device. Since you have this device with you all the time, it's just a logical tool for that. The mobile app itself runs on a web application that installs on one of the customer's servers. So there's not a requirement to add a new web server and open up anything that isn't already there. And so overall, we're pretty comfortable with the level of security. And this follows, as I said, on the same kind of functionality we did with our web client. Our web client, it used to require a user license to access messages, but now it's free as well. So same, you load part of the application up on one of the customer's web servers, and they now have kind of the same functionality. They can access and play their messages. We do it a little different. Rather than download the message, play it, and then delete it, with the web technology, it was actually easier just to stream the message. So when you click the play button, we stream the message and play it. What that means is there's no file attachment save. There's no cache copy that a savvy user can get to, and there's no getting that message off the system. Basically, both these clients do exactly what voicemail has done for years over the telephone interface in terms of access messages, delete them, forward them to other system users, but no external access to it. And that's given us a very secure approach in terms of people that are worried about confidentiality and compliance, as well as general security, find this approach very useful. Now, for those of you who might already be familiar with our mobile client, we don't want to confuse people. You can download the mobile client for free, and you get the messaging and all the other settings functionality that client does. But there is an enhanced feature set still on the mobile device that actually requires the personal assistant license. So that license is still in play, and this is mostly if you want to control your availability, your call routing, you want to integrate to the calendar, you want to be able to use your personal contacts for dialing and forwarding messages. There's that whole level of integration that does still require the license. But without any license at all, any user can download our client and have secure messaging plus the general settings functionality. We've done a couple of things beyond that in the security area, and this is kind of something that we've struggled with for years. We've always had personal messages, where as I send you a message, I can mark it as personal, and that's been great, because then when you get a personal message, you cannot forward it on. And from a security point of view, that was a good feature. But as we started storing messages in Exchange, or the user's email client in general, while we still mark that message as personal, and the email system would actually recognize that and mark it as personal, the email message would ignore that flag in terms of still allowing the user to forward it out. So in order to enforce message privacy, when we're storing messages in Exchange, 2 software releases ago we added a new feature. We can turn that on, and when you get a personal message and we put it in Exchange, we'll send an email into your inbox, and it'll tell you you have a new voice message, but it'll tell you you have to call in over the phone to get that message. So we've basically taken that kind of security one further level to tie it down even tighter. And these are all pieces that have been discussed with clients for several years now, and we're still interested in having other discussions about more security. Security, we know, is just a very important piece. So definitely, if you have other issues with security, you should get in touch with us, and we'd love to have that discussion. I said the client that you purchase does things beyond just messaging, so I'm going to put a little plug in for that, because with the personal assistant, the way it was before, or if you buy it now, there's quite a few features that don't have to do with messages, but have to do with calls. We are very big on the concept that as great as we are at taking messages, we're pretty sure you would rather complete that call the first time. So call completion is one of the big things we do. And here's an example of that. If you're sitting in a meeting and you have our personal assistant license, when your calls come in, you can arrange so you get a silent pop-up on your mobile device showing you who's calling. And it'll show you system users or anyone in your contacts. And now you can make a decision from that what you want to do. You can accept it, step out in the hall and take the call, or you can hit the options button, which will bring up the second and middle screen, where you have some options on how to process that call. You can record an acknowledgement message. You can say, "Hi, John, this is Neil. I'm in a meeting. I'll get back to you in 20 minutes. Or you could transfer it to another device or to another person. All of that's a little disruptive, but if you're in the middle of a meeting and you really don't want to do anything that calls attention to yourself, you would hit the Select Acknowledge button, which would take you to the far right-hand screen, and that will give you a choice of canned announcements you can play to the caller. You click "Will call in 15 minutes," you go back to the meeting, haven't interrupted anything, and the caller hears, "Neil Butler was unable to take your call, but we'll call you back in 15 minutes. And a copy of that reminder goes into your voicemail as well. So from the voice messaging side, we have been doing general voicemail as long as anybody out there, really, over 30 years. And we have the richest feature set out there. We were very lucky that we started with open systems industry standard software and hardware from the beginning. So every feature we've ever put in the system is in there. And that just gives us a much wider range of traditional features as we move ahead and forward on the new, focus on the new features, such as the security aspects. When we talk about secure messaging and we talk about the private voice messages, there's a whole nother layer of our communications with the other components. So there's quite a few people who are interested in secure on the wire. It's fine to have it be secure when it's stored and secure in the clients, but on the wire they would like it. And the traditional technology for this is TLS and secure RTP, and we do support those. So the connections coming from the phone system to us can be secured as well. The personal assistant license we talked about is still worth looking at, we believe. You certainly can get the free client for the messaging piece, but as we look at how phones are used today, and they're still the most popular tool for people externally. Internally, email has actually surpassed it, but anytime you're away, phone is still the popular tool. You still do email remotely, but there's a lot of things that are just easier to do on the phone. And what we'll do is make that phone communications much more effective. One of the things we'll do is we'll use context to route incoming calls. What that means is rather than count on a user to forward their phone to their mobile when they leave the office, or to record a new greeting, when they're going to be busy for half a day, we actually will go in and read the other systems on the network. And what that lets us do is route calls based on their physical location, what their calendar says, what their Skype client says, and a general schedule that they've created. And the user can control all these, but typically once they're in the place, they're automatic. So if you look at a caller coming in, what we have is a very rich feature set where the user can go in with manual overrides anytime they want and say, right now, send my calls to my mobile phone. But there's also a set of automatic overrides triggered by calendar, location, and presence that will do that same kind of routing. So imagine you set up the system so that when you're in the office, and the system knows that, it sends calls to your desk phones. As soon as you leave the office, it sends them to your mobile phone. As soon as you get home, it'll send them to your home phone. That kind of automatic call routing will increase call completion and make it much easier for the users. The systems we're using, the systems we're reading for this, are really systems that you're already, as a user, maintaining. Everybody keeps their calendar up pretty well because it's really, you have to do that in a business environment. And the instant messaging with Skype keeps itself up pretty well in terms of knowing what you're doing. Plus you can set your own statuses. And all of these can be used to not only effectively route calls, but to build custom on-the-fly greetings for the caller. And then we sort of layer this on top of our speech user interface so that if you're in the car using all these features, the security on the messaging side, the call control, incoming, outgoing calls, can all be done safely with very simple, intuitive commands. We don't want to leave our automated attendant piece behind. It's interesting. Customers tell us quite a bit, oh yeah, we don't really use our automated attendant anymore. And then we replace the system, and the first days they're coming back to us, oh, we just found out there's a certain department that still uses that. We're using the speech automated attendant now, or we have a department that is doing some special business processes by answering callers and either using menus or using recorded messages or surveys. So we just think it's nice to be comfortable and say, anything you have in an existing system in the way of automated attendant and call processing functionality, we have covered. The next step, though, for us is to take that further. And the way we take that further is by adding things to the call processing piece. We've added a full speech front end, which is very, very powerful. We've added disambiguation for multiple users with the same name, alias name support. All of our functionality in the front end is speech driven, not just the directory. And we've partitioned the system now such that you can have different speech front ends based on department or location, time zone. So if you have a system in New York and a system in Chicago, when somebody calls into New York and says John Tyler, we can arrange it so it only searches for the John Tylers in New York. So that kind of advanced functionality is layered in with most of our solutions today. So as we look at security in general, we really are comfortable now having those discussions with people on what they feel they need in their environment for security. And we'd love to have those discussions with you. And now we'll open it up for some questions.
Okay, thanks very much, Neil. If you have a question to submit, we have one or two in here already. If you're looking for the question box, it probably is minimized. You can use the orange arrow in the upper corner. And just want to reiterate that we will make the slides available as well as the recording. Neil, the first question, how do you handle difficult to pronounce names with the speech attendant?
So there's a couple of choices we have. At the very top level, for every user, you can go in and create alias names. And those alias names might be Dr. John Smith, Jonathan Smith, Johnny Smith. It might be those types. But also when you have names that are pronounced different than they look. So anybody, using a business card and calling in is just not going to have a clue how to say that name correctly. You can use that same alias name functionality to build aliases that match the common ways people would say those names. In fact, it's a best practices for us when our professional services does an install. We ask for a complete list of usernames, and we go through them and flag the ones that might be problematic up front and make sure that we get all that, the disambiguation and the alias name creation done before the system goes live.
Okay, great. Next question. Can you confirm users do not have to record separate greetings based on schedules?
So users can have additional greetings that are triggered by schedules, but it's not a requirement. The system, in fact, the user doesn't ever have to record any greetings if they don't want. They can actually be set up where the system will always create the greeting on the fly. But if you create a greeting and you want that to be your greeting in all cases, there's no problem supporting that at all.
Does anyone really listen to those greetings anymore?
Sorry,
is, maybe I shouldn't have said that.
What digit will get me by them, I think is.
Right. Okay, let me just do a quick scroll here. Okay, there's no new questions coming in, so unless someone's still typing and one pops in while we're talking, I'll jump back over to questions. Just want to thank everyone for attending. Look for the follow-up email from us later today, which will have the link to the slides as well as the recording. And we will also include a link to our upcoming webinars. Right now we've got, I think, about one per month scheduled for the next 2 or 3 months. There's one next Wednesday on Skype for Business, so we hope we'll have many of you might be interested in attending that. And then just want to thank you again for taking the time out of your day, and we'll hope to see you on another webinar hopefully soon. Neil, did you want to close us up as well?
Sure, thank you, Ann. I'll extend my thanks as well. We know it's hard for you to take time out of your day to attend these, and we always appreciate it when you do. Hopefully they're worth it, and if they aren't, you should get in touch with us and tell us that. info@avst.com. We'll get you feedback into our channel, and we really would be interested in hearing whether you liked the webinar, if it was too long, if it was too short, is there another topic you'd like us to cover. We really do these to service you, so the more information we get from you, the better we can do. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks again, Neil, for the presentation. Have a great